There are 77 double faults sitting in Alex Eala's 2026 stat sheet. 77 times in 31 matches the toss went up and the ball landed in the wrong box. That number by itself tells you why the 21-year-old Filipino walked off court Philippe Chatrier 10 days ago after losing to Iva Jovic in barely 100 minutes, looking like someone who had forgotten how to breathe at the right moment. And yet that same player, carrying that same serve, just obliterated Priscilla Hahn's 6-0, 6-2 on grass, a surface where every service miscue is supposed to be magnified because you get fewer second chances. So, what exactly happened between Paris and Birmingham? And can it happen again tomorrow against Alina Charaeva, a woman who once beat Eala when Alex was still a child, but who walked away from their last meeting having won 3 games? This is a story about timing. Not metaphorical timing, not the vague motivational poster version. Literal timing, the half-second between the peak of the ball toss and the snap of the wrist that determines whether Alex Eala is the player who bageled a set against Magdalena Frech in Rome, or the one who double-faulted herself into oblivion in Strasbourg. It is also a story about what happens when 2 athletes arrive at the same patch of English grass with profoundly different relationships to the surface beneath them. Eala's grass court history is more extensive than people realize. Last year she reached the Eastbourne final through a draw that included Diana Yastremska, Varvara Gracheva, and a retired out of Yelena Ostapenko. She ended up losing that final to Maya Joint in a heartbreaker, a 10-8 super tiebreak in the deciding set. That loss stung, but the process of getting there revealed something important about how her game functions when the ball stays low. On grass, her left-handed delivery, the one that so often misfires on clay because the high bounce gives opponents time to read it, suddenly becomes a different animal. The slice serve out wide from the deuce court skids away from right-handers into territory they cannot reach comfortably. The kick serve, which on clay bounces into a returner's strike zone, instead stays compressed, forcing opponents to dig rather than attack. Her serve does not change. The surface changes what her serve means. That distinction matters enormously when you try to project the Birmingham match against Kalinina. Because if you only look at what happened in the last 3 weeks of Eala's season, the first-round exit in Strasbourg against Alexandra Olianovskaya, the swift dismissal by Jovic at Roland Garros, you construct one narrative. You see a player in freefall, someone whose confidence is leaking out of the holes that 77 double faults punched into it. You might also notice that her loss to Elena Rybakina in Rome's 3rd round, while respectable, came with the familiar flavor of a player who competes beautifully until she has to hold serve under sustained pressure in a big moment. There is a pattern here. When Eala's serve wobbles, everything wobbles. But grass interrupts that pattern. It gives her serve a layer of protection that no other surface provides. First serve percentage becomes less critical when the serves you do land carry more consequences. Eala's first serve winning percentage on grass in 2025 sat comfortably above 65%, significantly higher than her overall career number. And the 6-love, 6-2 demolition of Priscilla Hahn suggests this year's grass transition has started well. Hahn is not Kalinina, but she is a competent Australian player who knows her way around Edgbaston Priory. Giving up 2 games against her is not nothing. Now consider who Kalinina is and what she brings into this round of 16. The Russian is 24 years old and has spent most of her career grinding through the ITF and WTA 125 circuits. Her breakthrough moment came in February in Midland, Michigan, where she won the Dow Tennis Classic, her first title at any level above ITF 75s. That tournament run was impressive in its composure. She beat Su Shulin, Yu Xiaodi, now Hibino, second-seeded Darja Vidmanova, and then Guang Haiyan in a final that required a tiebreak in both sets. Every match was fought. Every match was close. And she won them all. That is the signature of a player whose game is built on relentlessness rather than brilliance. Someone who does not produce breathtaking winners, but who refuses to give you the free errors that let you relax. The Lagardère tournament in Paris a few weeks ago confirmed this profile. Charaeva beat the 5th-seeded Sarah Bijlek 6-4, 6-love, handled Tamara Korpach in a 3-setter, and then dismantled Alexandra Sasnovich 6-4, 6-love before falling to Diane Parry in a semi-final that went to 2 tiebreaks. 2 tiebreaks. Against a player ranked significantly above her. That is the hallmark of someone who makes opponents work for every single point, who never capitulates, who turns matches into wars of attrition that eventually wear down players who need rhythm and flow. This is exactly the type of opponent who should give Eala trouble. The Filipina's return game, ranked 5th on the WTA Tour last year in terms of return games won percentage, thrives on pace. She redirects. She takes time away. She uses the speed of her opponent's serve against them. But what happens when the serve coming at her is moderate in pace and high in placement variety? When the ball arrives without the energy she needs to redirect. Charaeva's serve is not a weapon. It sits in the low 160s in kilometers per hour. It is functional. And functional serves on grass can be tricky because they keep. You win rallies where the surface rewards the person who moves forward first. And Krejcikova moves forward. Not with flamboyance, not with the athleticism of a Sakkari, or the aggression of a Sabalenka, but with intelligence. She reads the court geometry well and positions herself to take balls on the rise when the opportunity appears. On grass, where rallies are shorter and the first player to establish position often wins the point, this willingness to come inside the baseline counts for something. Yet, the head-to-head tells us something that cannot be ignored. In January, at the Philippine Women's Open in Manila, IGA demolished Krejcikova 6-1, 6-2 on hard courts. That was not a close match. It was a statement. IGA's return game suffocated Krejcikova's serve from the opening game onward, breaking repeatedly and dictating every rally from the baseline. If we take that result seriously, and we should, because it was only 5 months ago, it tells us that when IGA's game is clicking, Krejcikova simply does not have the firepower to withstand it. The gap in pure ball striking quality between a world number 37 and a world number 130 is enormous. And on that January day, it showed. But their first ever meeting tells a different story. Back in September 2020, at a W15 event in Melilla, Spain, Krejcikova beat a 15-year-old IGA 6-3, 6-3. That was a different era for both players. IGA was a child. Krejcikova was 18 and already navigating the lower circuits with the experience of 2 full professional years. That match is ancient history in competitive terms, but it establishes something important. Krejcikova is not intimidated by IGA. She knows what it feels like to beat her. And while the power dynamic has shifted drastically in the years since, the psychological memory of having been the better player on court against someone never fully disappears from the nervous system. The question for Wednesday afternoon at Edgbaston Priory Club becomes deceptively simple. Which version of Eala's serve shows up? If the serve that functioned on Tuesday against Hahn appears, the one where she hit her spots, kept her double fault count in single digits, and used the lefty angles to create openings that her forehand could finish, then Kerber faces a nearly impossible task. She does not possess the defensive speed to track down well-placed shots on a surface that punishes anyone half a step late. She does not have a return game explosive enough to put sustained pressure back on Eala's service games. And her own serve, while reliable, does not generate free points on grass the way it might on indoor hard courts, where she has had her best results this year. But if the serve from Paris and Strasbourg shows up, the version where the toss drifts, where the timing fractures between motion and contact, where double faults cluster in bunches of 2 and 3 within a single service game, then the match changes shape entirely. Kerber's entire competitive identity is built on staying alive long enough for the opponent to self-destruct. She does not need to generate winners. She needs you to generate errors. And a broken Eala's serve generates errors like a factory line. The statistics from their head-to-head meetings contain a subtle clue. In their combined 2 matches, Eala has won 63% of points when she lands her first serve. But when she misses it and goes to her second delivery, she wins only 50%. Kerber, by contrast, wins 40% on her own second serve, but converts 51% of return points overall. What this means in practice is that the match will likely be decided by Eala's first serve percentage. If she lands above 60% of her first deliveries, Kalinina's return game cannot generate enough pressure to create break point opportunities. If Eala dips below 55%, which she did repeatedly in her clay court losses, the match enters precisely the territory where Kalinina thrives, extended rallies where patience and discipline outweigh raw power. There is also the matter of rhythm. Eala has not played a competitive match on grass since last July's first-round loss to Barbara Krejcikova at Wimbledon. That is 11 months without feeling the surface. The honorable match would have served partly as recalibration, getting the footwork back, adjusting to the lower bounce, remembering how to slide without losing balance. Kalinina, meanwhile, has even less grass court experience in her entire career. Her lifetime record on grass entering this week was 2 wins and 1 loss. That is barely a sample. She knows hard courts. She knows clay. She does not know what her game is on this surface beyond theoretical projection. This mutual unfamiliarity creates an interesting dynamic. Neither player enters with true grass court fluency. Eala has more data points, last summer's Eastbourne run, matches at Nottingham, Ilkley, Birmingham, but data points from 11 months ago decay rapidly. Kalinina has her Midland title and her Paris semi-final as recent form indicators, but those came on hard and clay, respectively. Wednesday's match is not a collision of grass court identities. It is 2 players inventing their grass court selves in real time, and the one who adapts faster will win. One technical element deserves attention. On grass, the most dangerous shot in women's tennis is often in return of serve, not the serve itself. This is counterintuitive because the common narrative about grass emphasizes serving. But when your return is aggressive enough, when you step inside the baseline and take the ball early, you remove the one advantage that serving on grass normally provides: time. Eala does this naturally. Her lefty forehand return, particularly against right-handed servers and to the backhand corner, allows her to take the ball on the rise and redirect it cross-court with an angle that slides away on the low bouncing surface. Charaeva serves predominantly into the backhand on the due side, exactly where Eala's return is most dangerous. If Charaeva does not adjust her serving patterns, she will face early pressure on almost every service game. But Charaeva has shown tactical adaptability this season. Against Sinew Wang, a player ranked far above her in Midland, she came back from a set down and won the deciding tie-break 7-1 against Korpach in Paris. She survived a second-set tie-break loss and came through the third. These are not the results of a player who executes a fixed tactical plan regardless of circumstances. They suggest someone capable of reading the match temperature and making adjustments. The bookmakers have priced Eala as a heavy favorite, around 73% implied probability. That feels roughly correct. The ranking gap, the head-to-head dominance in their most recent meeting, the grass court experience differential, all point to Eala. But 73% is not 90%. There is legitimate space for Charaeva to compete here if specific conditions align, if Eala's serve is shaky from the outset, if the Russian finds her range on returns quickly, and if the match extends deep into a second or third set where Charaeva's superior deciding set record, 59% compared to Eala's 54%, gives her a genuine edge. The emotional backdrop matters, too. Eala arrives in Birmingham carrying the residue of a deeply disappointing French Open. Being beaten by a close friend in Iva Jovic in straight sets in the first round of a Grand Slam where she was directly accepted by ranking, that is a wound. Not a crippling one, but a fresh one. The honorable demolition suggests she has responded to it with fury rather than fragility, channeling the frustration into clean, aggressive tennis. If that fury sustains through Wednesday, Kvitova will struggle to contain it. Kvitova, on the other hand, arrives with quieter, but real momentum. Her first-round win over Greet Minnen 6-3, 6-1 was authoritative. Minnen is a Belgian player who has spent years in the top 100 and knows her way around grass. Dispatching her in 50-odd minutes is not the work of a player overwhelmed by the surface. It suggests that Kvitova's game, while untested in large samples on grass, translates adequately when the opponent does not generate exceptional power. The problem for Kvitova is that Eala generates exceptional power, particularly on grass, particularly from the left side, and particularly when angry. So, here is the honest assessment. Eala should win this match. Her weapons are sharper, her grass court credentials deeper, and her recent destruction of Kvitova in Manila provides a psychological template she can lean on. The The serve is the variable. It is always the variable with Eala. The difference between a player who reaches Grand Slam quarterfinals and one who loses in the first round to teenagers. If Tuesday's version appears, this match will be quick and brutal. If the Paris version appears, Kvitova has the tools and the temperament to make it uncomfortable, to extend it, to create doubt. But even in that scenario, the Russian needs Eala's collapse to be sustained rather than momentary. A single wobble in one service game is not enough against a player who can reel off 4 straight games when she finds her timing again. Charaeva can compete. She can make Eala work. She can take a set if things break right. But shocking her, truly shocking her, as in winning the match, requires a specific and prolonged malfunction in Eala's game combined with the Russian playing at or above the level she showed against Diane Parry in Paris. Both things happening simultaneously is possible, it is not probable. And in a best-of-3 format on grass, where one break of serve often decides a set, the margin for the lower-ranked player to recover from falling behind is painfully thin. The answer to whether Alex Eala can be shocked is yes. She demonstrated in Paris and Strasbourg that she is fully capable of losing to players she should beat on paper. But the grass beneath her feet in Birmingham changes the calculation. It forgives her weaknesses and amplifies her strengths in ways that clay and indoor hard simply do not. Alina Charaeva deserves respect for how far she has climbed this season and for the steel she has shown in tight moments. But respect and victory are different currencies, and on Wednesday afternoon, Eala holds most of the coins.